Welcome to Prevenge of the Nerds. This is a podcast about the stories that could have led to your favorite movies, TV shows, and so much more. I'm Bradley Butin, and this is.
Brian S. Dennis, brother, with an S, stands for electrified.
Oh, buddy. We will be your guides on this quest to level up your awesomeness. We will nerd out, we will get sidetracked, and we'll have a great time doing it. Now, this is how the show is going to go. First, we're going to cover our topic of the week. We'll discuss, theorize, give our 2 cents worth along with the penny for our thoughts. Then we'll each have our own topic to cover with each other's. These will be referred to as tats and our pitches. And we're a little bit different of a format now. We're making our upgrade to the War Report and Prevenge of the Nerds, and we might have a little something stirring that we can't wait to bring up. So this is our
If
first
that
attempt.
doesn't whet your appetite, nothing will.
I know I'm thirsty.
I just
Cheers.
realized that I have a tumbler that's green, so it disappears most of the time. But, okay, if it's right in front of my black t-shirt, you can see it, so I'll try that again. There, okay.
I dig it. Yep. All right. So, Brian, since it's the first time we've been live on YouTube and Twitch, what is Prevenge of the Nerds?
Prevenge of the Nerds is just like it sounds. So Brad and I almost remember when you had the Revenge of the Nerds, is when the world basically said, hey, you don't fit in, but you had to fight your way into it. Now we have a world that is honestly becoming very, very nerd friendly. So Brad and I love to talk about anything and everything that we consider part of our nerdverse. Movies, comics, music, and we've got a very special episode for it today where they're going to pause and say it the correct way as kids of the 80s and 90s. On this week's very special Prevent of the Nerds, we're going to be talking about the world of professional wrestling. Brother, dig it. So when we do, yes, sir. So when we do Prevent of the Nerd, it's our take on things. Sometimes it's a countdown of our favorite things that we've viewed. And sometimes it's that we rearrange something happened in one of the cinematic universes. Sometimes it's a deep dive and review of a movie, a comic, a new series. So Prevent of the Nerds is just whatever we feel makes you awesome. And honestly, there's no one more awesome in our universe than you folks. So thank you for joining in. We're so privileged to have the opportunity to stream live and come into your computers and your living rooms or wherever else you have us. And that is the Revenge of the Nerds. And it's going to be your chance for an hour to level up your awesome.
Yes. So, Brian, we kind of already let the cat out of the bag of what we're talking about today.
Brother.
You know what? Let's get right into it. So, I know I did my honorable mentions first last week.
Yes, sir.
Brian, in the world of wrestling, who are your favorite wrestlers? Let's hear that. Let's hear those.
First off, brother, if you got to talk about professional wrestling, you got to understand that professional wrestling is one of the greatest forms of entertainment there is on the day of the world. It is just like all great sports. It is not fake. It may be choreographed. It may be predetermined, but it's not fake. The violence is real. So Brad and I are going to go through our favorites when it comes to the world of professional wrestling. If you don't know, now you know. So we're going to start off with our honorable mentions, not necessarily our top five, but still the people who made our world of professional wrestling go from back in the day to today. Here's a list of 9 honorable mentions. So up first will be the man who made me first a fan of professional wrestling. In 1988, I had a cousin come visit me from the great state of New Jersey, and he made me watch this little thing called WrestleMania 4. And in WrestleMania 4, it was a quest for the then WWF Championship. And in that pay-per-view, I got to watch the match between Andre the Giant and my first mention, honorable mention. That's right, the man with the 24-inch pythons, the amazing, the immortal Hulk Hogan. Now, I'm gonna start talking like that because it's starting to hurt my throat. So, Hulk Hogan is the first person in my honorable mention. And I was telling, if I was done this when I was 10, 12 years old, absolutely Hulk Hogan would have been in my top 5. He's not, because Hulk Hogan the wrestler is Hulk Hogan the man. Little different. All right. So with that being said, though, he's absolutely my top 5. He's definitely my top 5 honorable mentions. I can whenever I say Hulk Hogan, I can hear that theme music playing. He also got over incredibly well as a babyface or a hero, as well as a heel. Most of us had those NWO Too Sweet shirts that made wrestling cool again in the 90s till about the year 2000, 2001. So first of my honorable mentions, the one, the only, the immortal Hulk Hogan. Up next, a couple of names that really are kind of synonymous to me. They're more contemporary wrestlers. They're both known for the more realistic style of professional wrestling. They really integrate pro wrestling plus a lot of mixed martial arts. They both are great on a little opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to integrating both those things. They both have got really famous and probably made a good deal of money for their time in the WWE, but both of them were household names for most of us true wrestling fans long before the WWE and now since leaving the WWE. So my next two names in my honorable mention have got to be the one, the only CM Punk, which stands for Chicago Made, and Mr. when he made most of his money, Daniel Bryan, but his real name, Bryan Danielson. They're also currently in AEW, and I believe Punk is the current AEW All Elite Champion. So I got to give
Yes.
some love to both, again, Bryan Danielson and Mr. CM Punk. All right. Next up after that, I got to, on one side of the spectrum where I talked about Hulk Hogan, I got to go to his tag team partner, one half of the Mega Powers, brother. And when they exploded, I cried. Okay. So the cat's out of the bag for most people know professional wrestling is somewhat staged. Okay.
Yeah.
But back in the 80s and 90s, when that wasn't known very well, I was a huge fan of Hulk Hogan, as I said, and I loved his tag team partner. They were the Mega Powers. And I remember watching Saturday Night's Main Event where I had to take a nap to stay up later to watch Saturday Night's Main Event because it came on in place of Saturday Night Live. And I got to see this gentleman attack Hulk Hogan to make the Mega Powers explode. And he is RIP one Randy Savage. So the Macho Man Randy Savage. Yes, absolutely one more member of my honorable mentions. And before I close the honorable mention, I want to go to someone that's really contemporary, current, and I think he's doing his best for a really impossible job. Probably one of the hardest jobs to do in pro wrestling. I don't know how much of our audience are fans of pro wrestling, but if you are, it's okay. So I got to go with I think the person with the hardest job in pro wrestling right now. That is to be the champion of the WWE. So I got to give it to the Bloodline. I got to give it to the guy that would be great if they ever make another werewolf movie. He's got the look, the hair, the muscles. He's my twin brother, if you want to look at it like that.
Yeah.
And by the way, for every person out there thinks that Jason Momoa is the thing, you have I've not seen this guy, but he's my man crush, Mr. Roman Reigns. So he's gonna be the fifth one of my honorable mention. Again, one of the hardest jobs in wrestling got to be being the champ of the WWE, because as much as you're supposed to be a wrestler, they're going to call you a sports entertainer. You're supposed to be the red carpet, the charity events, do all the things that take you away from the world of pro wrestling. And I think he handles it probably as well as anyone. And he has finally, with someone that we can boo. We wanted to boo him for a long time. Now they're letting us boo him, and it's going with the reaction they want. So my honorable mention is Mr. Roman Reigns, sir. So why don't you cover your HM, sir?
I will. I'm only going to bring up the ones that you didn't mention.
Okay.
Just to cover up. We have so many alike. And coming up with this list was just like, I knew who I wanted in my top one.
Sure.
My top couple, and then the rest. Like,
yep,
okay.
Say. I knew my 1 and 2 were. That was everything else was like, where do we go? Yep.
So you brought up CM Punk, but we got to talk a little bit about the Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior is one of the greatest. He was part of the reason why WWF became the Attitude Era, the 80s wrestling. I mean, it's just now let's be real about this. Wrestling in the 80s, there was a lot of illegal substances, I'm sure, that was coming around here, guys.
Just a little.
Right.
A little. Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa would have made great professional wrestlers. Yes.
Yeah. And so some of these names might be a little bit controversial. Another one like Chris Benoit.
I'm glad you put him in there. In retrospect, he probably should have been in my at least honorable mentions.
Yeah,
Chris Benoit. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're judging the wrestling, not the man. So
yep. By the way, we judge everything by the person, not the person that's doing the sport. And I will always call professional wrestling a sport. There's so many people in the annals of professional baseball and the NFL, particularly those two, especially old school baseball, that we would not be rooting for. Also, for those of you that don't know the Benoit story, because if you're not professional wrestling fans, this story also happened quite a bit ago, is Chris Benoit was a person who number one, at the end of the day, he's someone that experienced a severe, lots of severe traumatic brain injury,
Mhm.
and I believe the autopsy I didn't say R.I.P. but pointed to the sky R.I.P. He has passed away, and they discovered from an autopsy, given the brain damage, he had the brain atrophy of a person in their late 80s.
Yeah.
But people in the late 80s don't necessarily do what he did, which is he not only ended his own life, but ended the life of his wife Nancy, and they're very young. I think not even a teenager.
Yeah.
Daniel. So we're not excusing his actions. Very rarely will you find his matches broadcast. You don't hear his name mentioned a lot of things,
Mhm.
because again, three people's lives, especially two innocent individuals' lives, are ended by. There's no doubt that he ended the life of his family as well as himself. There definitely seems to be some mitigating circumstance with that. He also was an avid steroid user, hence some
Yeah.
chemical enhancements there. But again, we judging it when it comes to the performance in the ring. And honestly, Benoit, fantastic. And honestly, another one that I didn't mention, and if I'm stealing with you, Brad, I apologize.
Oh, you're good.
If you gotta mention Chris Benoit, you gotta go to the other side of the table and mention the one, the only, Mr. Eddie Guerrero. Which
Yep.
again, fantastic entertainers. They were great at what they do. Best friends, both gone too soon. And if you know the Benoit story, you cannot minimize the effect of Guerrero's death a little over a year before Benoit's suicide, as probably taking Benoit's life a little further off the rails than it already was.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't say it any better. Another got to bring up the I Come in Peace star, Hot Rod. Rod.
Oh my goodness. RIP. By the way, if nothing else, this tells you about that did what these men, and I don't know if there's any women on your list, but what these athletes put themselves through that I have done, I think at this point, 4 or 5 RIPs. Roddy
Yeah.
Piper's another one. Again, extremely talented. He's on your list. I'll let you talk a little bit about Hot Rod.
Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna keep on going. I'm just gonna
Go
bring up
for it.
these names. So I'm gonna talk. Just gonna bring up Mick Foley. He's another one on my
Yes.
list.
Yes.
Mankind, Dude
Yes.
Love. I mean, uh,
Yes.
you brought up Macho Man, Edge, and Christian. Are
Yes.
They
Yes.
made my honorable mentions because
Yes.
they were integral in the Attitude Era,
Yep.
which is my favorite era of wrestling.
Okay.
As my list will tell you.
Reflects, yeah. I do
Yes.
admit, Edge. I wish I had his hair. I mean,
Oh
just
yeah, me too.
yeah. Yeah. Talk about a guy who could have made a lot more money just making Pert commercials. You get it, Pert. All right, who dropped that reference? Pert, sir. Yes, yes. I said it. Pert shampoo. And if anyone puts in the comment what is Pert shampoo, you can go to hockey sticks. All right, Pert's a thing. Pert's a thing. All right, go for it, sir.
We got a couple more. I'm just gonna round up here. We got Miz, the Miz.
Yes.
Big fan of the Miz. Just I'm a later
Oh
fan of
God.
the Miz.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. He's
Um,
developed. He really did. He
yeah,
really did. Yeah.
yeah. And RVD, Rob
Yes.
Van Dam.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
For a couple reasons. RVD. Yes. All right.
if it
Yes.
wasn't for our Rob Van Dam, we would probably not be having this list this week.
Yes. That's a good point. That's such a
Right.
good point. And I kind of want to see Jean Claude versus RVD. I think RVD might mess up the muscles from Brussels, but
It'd be worth it.
yes. By the way, on the Kenny Rogers Snoop Dogg tour bus, they got to make space for Mr. RVD. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Rob Van Dam's great. I'm glad he made your list, and he is one of a kind. Absolutely.
And then you brought up Hulk Hogan already, but then I'm gonna end up my top or my honorable mentions with John Morrison.
Yes.
I am such a
Yes.
fan of John. He's an
Johnny
AEW.
Nitro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's an AEW right now as well. He
Oh,
just came
beautiful.
in.
Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful.
So, I really like I actually like AEW right now more than I
Right.
like the WWE.
Right. Right.
So, but those are my honorable mentions. There's so many great wrestlers out there. Brian, I
Yes,
am
sir.
dying to hear your top 5
All right.
favorite wrestlers.
Yes. So, okay. So, Brad talks about his favorite era of wrestling was the Attitude Era. I'm actually a little more of an old school fan. Again, I said in my intro, and my Hulk Hogan / Macho Man kind of mix a little bit of the two in my sound. This is what a professional sounds like, brother. So I started again. My cousin Kenneth came down from New Jersey in 1988. We watched WrestleMania 4, which was a tournament, which is a great way to become a fan of wrestling. They had a little bit of everything in that pay-per-view. It was really long, so I had to count on that, and I fell in love with match number 1. So a lot of my top 5 reflects that late 80s, early 90s fandom, and I got to start off with his son right now is integral in the creation of AEW, and now is a really, really hot prospect for the WWE in Cody Rhodes. And while Cody did not make my list or my honorable mentions, I got to start off with his daddy, the son of a plumber, the one, the only, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
Yes.
Before there was really a high-profile black wrestler and a lot of on a now national stage, Dusty picked up that torch. He had the Blue-Eyed Soul. I watched old tapes from him in the '70s. He came out with robes, and then he went to WWE. Why did they dressed him up in polka dots, which I don't get. So okay. So here's a fun
It was
fact.
the 80s.
It was the
Polka
80s.
dots,
So
cocaine, you know.
yeah, so here's a fun fact for you. So, Bradley, so do you remember the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase?
Yes.
Do you remember his valet, Virgil? You remember him?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know why his valet was named Virgil?
No.
It was a rib, a joke on Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes' real name is Virgil.
Really?
So that was Vince McMahon's way of kind of rubbing it in to the competition when Dusty was in the NWA, that he named the valet the Stooge for, again, Ted, who's basically playing a wrestling version of Vince McMahon. They just made his valet named Virgil. So
and
yeah, go ahead.
who Virgil became a better wrestler than Ted DiBiase.
Absolutely. And then when Virgil wound up going to the WCW, what really kicked off a lot of Attitude Era in those Monday Night Wars, they changed Virgil's name to Vince to again kind of play the joke back. All right. So Dusty's my number 5. My number 4, I'm a big fan. I think we mentioned our war report that it's really hard to be a really good villain because villains have eventually become just cool. So Darth Vader, Voldemort, Thanos, Killmonger. There's folks that are just so cool that even though they're the bad guy, whether Razor Ramon or RIP to Scott Hall, he didn't make at least he didn't make my list. So I got to think of who really was the first villain that just made me cry and I couldn't stand. And I got to give it to the jet flying, wheeling dealing son of a gun, the one, the only, and I've said one of them for all these folks because they are all legends in my mind, at least. The Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Give me one.
Woo!
There it is, sir. There it is. I'll give you Hogan. He'll give you Flair. Again, the multi-time world champion. Fantastic. All right. Next up, from number 3 on my list. All right. Again, while I love Ric Flair, who made a lot of his money as a heel or as a bad guy, it's so hard to only ever be a good guy because, again, a lot of times we look at rest of other things. Bad guys become popular; they're cool. Good guys wear thin because they kind of a little straight laced. Like we all got a little bored with Luke Skywalker, right? Like we all like Han Solo a little bit better. So here's a guy for his entire wrestling career was a babyface, was a good guy. That is really, really hard to do. As well as he's had the coolest looking move off the top rope. That was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. So just seeing that crossbody off the top rope, I was such a big fan. One of my favorite matches ever was Macho Man Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat in WrestleMania 3 for the Intercontinental title. For those that are not wrestling fans, don't worry about it. But for wrestling fans, you know the match I'm talking about. All right,
probably
so
one of the greatest matches in WWF. Yeah,
absolutely. And if you ever get a chance to watch, there's a great documentary series called Behind the Ring. I'm sorry, not Behind the Ring, Beyond the Ring.
There's also Dark Side of the Ring as well.
Dark Side of, that's what I'm trying to say. Dark Side of, I'm totally wrong. Dark Side of the Ring. So when they do one about Randy Savage, they talk a lot about the match him and Steamboat. Savage literally wrote out every move in the match and wanted it done to that level of detail. And Steamboat talks about how the match had something like over 100 moves and sequences and spots that they had to know by heart. And so when it came to WrestleMania 3 and when the lights were on bright, they danced at the they danced on top of the moon. So got to give it to Ricky Steamboat. And he's also one of the few that I'm not going RIP. By the way, I didn't say it's for Dusty, RIP. Next up, my top two. This is the list that I knew. I knew the minute that you said last week, let's do wrestlers, let's do the top five. This is my number two and my number one spot. So this was the first guy that was a contemporary wrestler that I really love. I dug Hulk Hogan and Macho Man because they were like these big superheroes, and I just like, oh, they're great, they're awesome. This was the first wrestler that I liked because he was a guy. He didn't have gargantuan muscles. He didn't come down with face paint. You know, he had cool interest music, but he was just someone that looked like, you know what? He is just better as a wrestler because he can wrestle better. That was all it was. He also had a cool ass nickname, and he had the coolest submission maneuver I ever saw, which is the one, the only. Again, I'm gonna say each one is one of the only. Mr. Bret the Hitman Hart. Okay, he was the first world champion that I was like, okay, I can relate to him. I can watch his matches to now. His matches are always pristine. He known as I never really causing any major injuries. The Hart family, definitely Raw family when it comes to that. And the sharpshooter is still probably my favorite submission move. And no, it is not the Scorpion Deathlock. It is the sharpshooter. That is the move. All right.
That is
All
correct.
right. And number one, again, when I talked about my last one on our honorable mentions, was the current WWE champion, Roman Reigns. We talked a lot about the bloodlines. Let's talk about someone that's in that same bloodline. All right. So if you heard me before when I said my name is Brian S. Dennis, and I talked about I am electrifying. This man is without a doubt my absolute favorite wrestler of all time. His career was far too short, but you know what? It lacked in quantity, it excelled in quality. Gave us great matches from beginning to end, but better than his matches were his promos or his speeches. He could make you feel with just the raising of an eyebrow. This man is the number one movie star in all of the world today. From Fast and the Furious to G.I. Joe, he's gone to the journey of the middle of the earth. He is the one, the only. And if you smell what I'm cooking, he is the people's champion. Bradley Buchanan. Who am I talking about?
The Rock.
The Rock. He is number one of all time. Yes,
Did
sir.
you watch the trailer for Black Adam?
Yes. Yes. And you know what? Talk about this. I've been waiting for his turn. They announced he was going to be Black Adam 4 or 5 years ago at this, and I was
A long
worried the
time.
movie was never going to get made. He is absolutely built for that role. Yes, so whether you want to call him Teth Adam or Black Adam, absolutely my number one fan. Just makes me geek out every time I hear that theme music. I was going to try and say it, but I can't do it any justice. But that's what I'm smelling what The Rock is cooking. The Rock is my all-time number one.
Yes. I will tell you one thing, Brian. We have one wrestler in our top 5 that match.
So for folks that don't know this, Brad and I never share our lists, and normally our lists really have a lot of overlap. You know, we never share them. For us to only have one the exact same spot is rare. So I can't, but that shows you the greatness and the real depth of quality wrestlers.
Not even in the same spot. My number 5.
Oh.
Is your number 1.
Oh, okay. Rock. Yes. Yeah. Wow. All right.
As awesome as The Rock is, when it came to wrestling, for other reasons, I have other people, and I think you might agree with some. So I'm just gonna you can't say anything. You can't intro The Rock any greater than you just did, unless it was The Rock himself. So
thank you, sir. Thank you.
I'm gonna leave that one alone. But my number 4 is a lot bigger, and actually your background is, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Y2K. Chris Jericho.
Excellent pick. Excellent
pick. Chris Jericho is like my list. So Chris Jericho is like in my top 3, and then I'm like, oh crap, what about so and so? Oh, he's my number 4. You know, so,
been there. Yes.
So yeah, that's kind of what happened. The person that knocked Chris Jericho out of my number 3 spot was Jeff Hardy from the Hardy Boys.
First off, back to Jericho really quickly. Jericho, fantastic, 9-time Intercontinental Champion, multi World Champion, first ever AEW Champion,
Mhm.
and just that theme music he uses
Oh man.
with Judas and Foz as a whole is a decent band, but that song is just killed. I love when he comes out, and you know your song is great when the fans sing along with it, but when he's trying to be a bad guy and the fans just love the music so much. So I feel you. So first off, great
Yeah.
pick with Mr. Jericho, and I love me some Jeff Hardy. My kid was a bigger Hardy Boys fan than I was, but I love the Hardys. Glad to hear Jeff made your list as well.
Yeah, back to Chris Jericho and So Foz, like that song Judas
Yes, yes,
is probably like it is on every one of my like playlists. Like when I go to the
absolutely.
gym,
Same, same,
Judas got to be on.
same,
When I
same.
need to get pumped up, Judas is playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that song. He just released a new album too. I haven't listened to it yet,
Okay.
but yeah, so Jeff Hardy, I met him.
Did you?
I met Jeff Hardy when I was in the service. We went to a wrestling
Okay.
thing, and at this time I wasn't super big into wrestling.
Okay.
But yeah, got to meet him quick. It was like a 10-minute conversation. He was awesome. He was nice. He recognized he asked if we were in the military. You know, he talked to us for a few minutes. That was it. That was that. Now, Jeff Hardy, kind of. I mean, he has amazing moves. The man can
Yes.
fly off those
Yes.
top ropes. And another one made some decisions in his personal life.
Sure.
Hey,
No
I
one's
get when
perfect.
you're
No one's
right
perfect.
when you're in this kind of business, things
Yep.
are going to happen. But
Yep.
so enough said on that. My number 2 is somebody I'm actually surprised did not make your list,
Okay.
because probably one of the biggest wrestlers and the most influential wrestlers that has been in every era of the wrestling, from the 80s to the 90s to currently. He just recently was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame.
I know who you're going.
I am talking about the one, the only,
Only.
the record
Yes.
phenom,
Yep.
Undertaker.
Taker. All right. So I got to pause it real quick here. Taker wasn't all over my list, but I go, my way of copping out to it was like, I can't love the Taker without my kid. My kid's such a
Oh,
huge Undertaker fan. I go, if this my list is his, I took him out. Probably shouldn't have. Undertaker. By the way, if you've not seen his documentary on, the WWE Records now on Peacock, if you've not had a chance to watch his documentary leading up to his retirement, it is phenomenal. There
I
is
haven't watched
so
it.
much there. I'm sorry.
I haven't watched it, so I'm definitely going
Okay.
to watch it this week.
Yeah, definitely. It is phenomenal. It's called Undertaker's Last Ride,
Mhm.
where they took all this. I mean, they basically filmed him almost his entire career in the WWE. So they interspersed that with interviews about his last probably 18 months to 2 years actively in the business, when he was up, when he was down, when he was injured, when he was healthy, and him just talking about it completely as Mark Calloway, not the Undertaker at all, but then just seeing the commitment that this man has to his craft. For another reason, you get to see an inside look of his relationship with Vince McMahon, which is also really
Yeah.
interesting. But it's great. But you're right. You can't put him in number 2. He could be on a lot of people's list number 1 or completely belong there. So yes, that is my bad for not including the Undertaker.
Well, and not only that, but he is also probably half of probably the greatest, one of the top 2 greatest matches. I'll say Hulk
Yes,
Hogan and Honor the John, probably the greatest match in all of WWE wrestling.
sure, sure.
But the second one is probably the choke slam from the top of the cage with Mankind. And I mean,
Yes.
that was, I mean, I remember watching that and just being like, what? And
I can hear JR. By the way, there's no, if you're gonna have a holy shit moment, Jim Ross needs to call it, because when he
right,
throws Foley through that table, and I can still hear, when just as you described, I hear it in my head right now with Jim Ross going, "As God is my witness, he's broke him in half." I was like, and I remember watching it going, I literally thought I just watched a murder. Like I was
right.
like, oh my! I don't care what people say about things being choreographed, not fake. But I don't care. But watching that, I just remember seeing. And if you've not seen it, the Hell in a Cell choke slam off the top of this cage, I mean, just it just sent shockwaves through my body. And I seen Mick Foley's Cactus Jack take really hard bumps because again he spent a
Mhm.
lot of time in NWA and in Texas. I got to see a lot of that stuff when I was a kid. So him taking insane drops was one thing. That would really look like, and I love the fact if you watch the match, and I know I'm stealing your time. If you watch the match, and they'll show the look while Mark Calloway, aka Mark Callis, aka The Undertaker, is in character, him looking down, and you can see behind his eyes, him really like, okay, move.
Right.
Please move.
Yeah.
Like, come on, like roll over something. And I don't know if he was selling it or he was living out in the kind of what, but there was that awkward moment where you go, okay.
Right.
So for no other reason than that, number one, he's a Hall of Fame for a million different reasons. But the fact he's part of that, not to mention, I don't know if you're going to mention it, his match with his back-to-back match at WrestleMania with Shawn Michaels,
Hmm.
with just, I mean, and to do those things at that point, he was in his late 40s, maybe early 50s, probably about the age that you and I are now. I don't know about you, I couldn't do what he did, like for
No.
real, not even a little bit.
I mean, if I'm like 5 feet up on a ladder, I'm like, man, I can't jump that.
Right, and this guy's jumping over turnbuckles and
Yeah.
just at almost 7 feet tall, well over 300 pounds. So
Yeah.
wow, the athlete that he is incredible.
Now, my number one has a little story to go along with it too. I
Please
actually
share.
met my number one, and so when I was on my way to boot camp for the Air Force, the last part we stopped was in the Austin airport, and in the Austin airport, when we were walking by, one of the people recognized a wrestler. Stone Cold Steve Austin was at
In
the
the
Austin.
Austin airport,
Yes.
another one that
So
did not make my list. Yes, sir.
yeah, so we stopped for in Stone Cold. Uh, he pulled, we went over there because I actually didn't really know a lot about him at that time, but
Mm,
the people I did was with did. So we go over and he talked to us for like 10 minutes and we asked like what we were doing. We're like, hey, we're on our
mhm,
way to boot camp. And this I will I'll always remember. He's like, hey, what you doing? We're like, oh, we're on our way to boot camp. This is our last stop. And he
mhm,
said, oh hell no. And he gave each one of us a hug and
mhm.
shook all of our hands. And he was just an amazing individual. And like that was the Stone Cold Steve Austin was the last civilian that I saw before I
Sure,
got pretty much before I went into boot camp.
sure.
Loaded up on the plane and everything. The last person not working for the airport.
Yeah,
And so yeah, so Stone Cold, I knew he was gonna be my number one. That there's few wrestlers at
sure,
his caliber. The Rock
sure,
is one of them. Triple
sure,
H is one of them.
sure. Yep.
Undertaker's one of them.
There's
You
so many
know,
that yeah, we can. This could have been a 20-person list.
right?
Yeah. Can I share with you a couple little trivia's on Austin?
Yes,
Because again, so Austin didn't make my list for one very particular reason. I'm very much you are an Austin fan or a Rock fan, just by the fact that they were contemporaries. I'm such a Rock fan that I just couldn't put Stone Cold on my list. That being said, couple quick things. Number one, do you know why his last name is Austin?
I do not.
So his real name is Steve Williams.
Hmm.
So when he was coming up as a professional wrestler, there already was a Steve Williams who was pretty prominently known as Dr. Death, Steve Williams, who's from Oklahoma. So he couldn't be Steve Williams. So when you're coming from Texas, Austin, the state capital, so he goes by, I'll be Steve Austin. Not to mention Steve Austin, the Bionic Man. He started wrestling in the early 80s. Secondly, is where the name Stone Cold came from, which is talk about people who are known for making unique decisions. Austin was known for basically stealing other guys' wives. So, so when he first debuted, and again, just because again, as a kid, I watched a lot of what was then known as World Class Championship Wrestling from Texas, and he debuted again. He's from Texas himself. He debuted as the protege of a guy named Chris Adams. There's two things about Chris Adams that are really important. Number one is Chris Adams actually invented the super kick. So when you see Shawn Michaels with the Sweet Chin Music, that's taken direct. And Shawn Michaels also, or Michael Hickenbottom. That's why you change your name. When your real name is Michael Hickenbottom, that's when you go by Shawn Michaels. But he actually, again, growing up in Texas, Chris Adams, who's from Great Britain, invented a super kick. Shawn Michaels, growing up in Texas, seeing that definitely influenced him using super kick. But when Austin was first brought in, he was going to be the protege of Chris Adams. He was going to turn on Chris Adams, become a heel, and his storyline was supposed to steal Chris Adams' wife, who went by the name Lady Blossom. Well, sometimes life imitates art, and he actually did not only turn on Chris Adams and storyline and steal his wife, he in reality stole the man's wife and married her. Her name is Jeannie, and because she's from Great Britain, when things get cold, she used a lot of British terms. So she had made him a cup of tea when he was trying to figure out what was going to be the nickname for his WWE character, and because he was so engrossed with what his work was, he wasn't drinking his tea. And the story goes, you need to drink your tea before it gets stone cold. And he just loved how that rolled off of her lips. I don't know if you ever seen her. I get why he loved that roll off her lips. So he goes, there it is. I'm going to be stone cold Steve Austin. By the way, he also later on married Deborah McMichael, who was married to Steve Mongo McMichael. So the fact that he steals other guys' wives is kind of how it rolls. But yes, there's a couple of interesting tidbits. Again, I'm a huge wrestling fan, so thank you for letting me give you all this way too in the weeds knowledge. But his real name is Steve Williams Austin from the great state of Texas, and then he can thank his wife, who I'm sure the divorce probably got a few royalty checks out of this, why he is named Stone Cold Steve Austin. Absolutely should be number one on a lot of people's list. Your number two are probably more authentically the greatest of all time. But again, I just love The Rock and love Bret Hart, so I went with my heart, Heart, with my list. So thank you for that, Brad.
Awesome. Well, that was a good fun time. Brian, it is time for our pitch.
Yes.
So every week we do our topic of the week. We do a pitch, and we do think about this. So we're gonna start off with a pitch. Brian, what is your pitch for me today?
All right. So
actually, you know what? Hold that thought. We have a visitor.
Do we have a visitor?
Hey.
Princess Leia, happy birthday.
Brian says happy here.
Happy birthday. Oh, wait.
Wait.
I don't always say that.
It's the other way around. Let me say it.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Princess Leia.
Thank you.
And this is, how old is she going to be, Brad?
She's 10. She's going to be 10 on Tuesday.
I thought so, 10.
I got a phone for my birthday.
You got a...
Yeah, she got a phone.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I'm gonna if it's okay with you, I'll put Uncle Brian's phone number in there.
Please do.
Right.
I was gonna say that.
I'll send it to you.
Yep, absolutely. So that is extremely. I think she said she's gonna go grab it.
Yep.
But yeah. So while we're planning on her return of her cameo, do you want to do your tat first? Or want me to do my pitch first?
You know what? Let's do my tat first, and then we'll go to the pitch.
Very cool.
So this week I was talking to a lot of different people, and we're always Superman kept coming up, and both of us, we aren't big fans of Superman. We like the character, we like what he's done, but never been. Oh, and she brought a cat too. Okay, yep, show the phone. There we go.
Cute phone. Is that an iPhone?
Yep, it's an iPhone. And then she brought in Xana because the cat's name will never be Honey.
It would never be Honey. It will never be Honey.
So Leia, did you know that you are making your YouTube and Twitch first appearance with the kitten? And Twitch, yeah. What's Twitch? I may have failed as a parent. Okay. All right, Leia. Apparently I have some explaining to do a little bit later. Okay.
See, that's the real talk. If you're the parents like Brad and I are, that's the real talk. After your kiddos, make sure you understand what Twitch is. So yes, all right. So you win fatherhood more times than not. But yeah, bro, tighten up your Twitch game a little bit. All right.
I definitely will. So, I wanted to talk to you, and I wanted us to figure out for our tat this week.
Sure.
How could we reboot Superman to be cool again? I mean, like to be to actually be a decent character, because I think that's a lot of his thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not the Superman, the character Superman just doesn't work anymore.
Sure.
What could we do to keep enough of his origin intact and make him worth it again?
So I think number one, the first thought that I have is this. one of the reasons that Superman was so popular when he first came out versus where some of us feel less connected to the character is that the world has changed around him. So when Superman came out, we need an idealistic character. Okay, so think about his origin story.
Mhm.
We know he's the last son of Krypton. He crash lands in the Heartland. He's found by this wonderful couple. They love each other immensely. He's raised in this idyllic little town of literally Smallville, Kansas. Can't get any more, apple pie than that. He goes to Metropolis. He becomes a reporter, but he's mild mannered. He he forever pines after Lois, who again, one of my biggest issues with it is Batman wears a cowl and does the throaty I need a lozenge voice. And some people still who are observant enough to figure out that it's really Bruce Wayne, right? This cat just puts on glasses. And no, okay, hang on. I'm gonna do what Superman does. Superman, Clark Kent. Superman, Clark Kent. But yes, and I know I'm like, oh, right? I can't believe that. Okay. So anyway, so I think one of the things that you have to do is you've got to break up some of the things that make you feel like the Superman universe, his cast of characters, Mom, Pa, Kit, Jimmy, Perry. By the way, he also works at a newspaper where they're supposed to be really observant, right? So I think the first thing you do to humanize him is that you retell the story in that two things. He comes to Earth not as a child, but maybe as a teenager.
Okay.
Number two, Mom and Pa Kent is a broken marriage.
Okay.
So you make him the more realistic adoption story. Okay.
Sure.
Everybody loves a baby. But now let's say he's a teenager. He wants to stay. His parents, maybe Jor-El, and I love the take on Jor-El all the time, is not a great guy to begin with. But, he's the last son of Krypton. He doesn't want to leave his parents. Maybe him and Jor-El get into a huge fight. I hate you. But then what I've been working on is product you feel like I've been ignoring you. It's really to send you to Earth so you will carry on our culture. He lands because he's a teenager. He knows he's from another planet. He has all the trauma from watching his world explode. And then he's found by these two well-meaning people. And they are, let's just be honest, what would happen is if you found a teenager that had all these powers, you're scared to death. All right. And so they work so hard to keep him from being found by the government, and then really try to really, and anyone that's ever been a foster parent, really trying to meld. Really, again, think about this: people come from different neck of the woods, socioeconomic status, different countries. How tough it is to kind of blend families there. This cat legitimately came from another planet, and stealing a little stuff from our friend from our love show that was gone too soon, RIP to Raising Dion. How do you discipline a child that can literally do almost anything?
Yeah.
Right? You got to make Pocket a disciplinarian and him go, you'll do it this way.
Yeah.
All right. And Clark is not having it. And I think but forget Superman, if you just start like retelling that story in his time in Smallville, from that lens, a traumatized teenager with all the powers to do everything he wants to except for save his parents, I think you retell a very, very compelling story that way.
I like it a lot. And actually mine is pretty similar to yours. So mine would be that Pa Kent is actually going to be his adopted grandfather.
Okay.
And the Ma Kent is going to be a single mom.
There you go. Yep. Very
and
similar. Yep.
So, but Martha Kent.
Martha.
So,
yes.
We just become best friends. So Martha Kent goes into labor and she loses her baby.
Oh.
And then she finds the baby and doesn't tell anybody.
Right.
And so it's now, but before that, we can tell a story about on Krypton that they know the planet is destructing, and what they're going to do is they're sending the babies. They're sending out babies with the crystals.
Sure.
To all the different planets out there to try to find so there's more Kryptonians out there.
Absolutely.
But not necessarily on Earth.
Right. Okay.
Kara's gets knocked off a line, So
Hmm.
what I'm thinking is there's going to be two. That way we can play in with the Supergirl thing as well.
Sure.
You're
Sure.
going to get
Sure.
a baby, and then you're going to get one, and then a protector of one,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So, but Kara's gets knocked offline, and you can tell those stories however you want to do it, And so the mom, she takes the baby because hers died. This is her Clark was her everything, And then her husband, or not husband, but boyfriend or whatever, is in and out of the picture.
Sure.
Just not
Sure.
a good guy, right?
Sure.
Maybe he's from Gotham or something, right?
Yeah, because all those Gothamites are jerks, right?
Right. Maybe his name.
Maybe she's dating Alfred.
There we go.
But Jeremy Irons Alfred. Got to be the Jeremy Irons Alfred.
Oh man, we're done. We really got to talk about the only Batman show I'm probably never going to watch, that new freaking Gotham Knights. It doesn't even sound good to me.
No.
Oh gosh. All right, but that could be a whole episode. But anyway, back to Superman. And then really you can actually tell a lot of the stories with Superman, with him just maybe a couple different ideas. Martha's doing the best she can. Maybe she's even a younger mom too.
Yes.
So maybe she's like a Marissa Tomei, Aunt May type thing.
Yes.
Raising the best that she could.
Absolutely.
Maybe he's not your all-American. Maybe he's got to really push himself to become the Superman, but he's got his crystal from he's got his Fortress of Solitude. And then, the other Kryptonians can come from other worlds. Maybe they don't have a yellow sun.
All I'm saying is Catherine Hahn playing Ma Kent. I think she would just be great at it.
Oh, yeah.
I also had a thought is whether it's Baby Clark or Teen Clark. I like the idea of the name, like in your version, because he's named after the baby that she should have had and lost.
Mm-hmm.
But then as we get maybe a little older, what we realize is, again, because in several different stories, the AI that runs Krypton and the ships is actually what eventually becomes Brainiac, right?
Yeah.
So can you imagine, like, maybe in the time, especially what we learn is that the baby's put in stasis. So it's been, let's say, a couple hundred years, right?
Yeah.
From the trip from Krypton to Earth. And that entire time, Brainiac, while Baby Clark or Baby Cal has been in stasis, Brainiac has been brainwashing him. So you eventually I just see this great thing of, maybe toddler Clark, and he's been put to bed and he wakes up and you see the glowing red eyes and he looks in the mirror and there's Brainiac. And, that would just be so chilling that, I mean, you're almost drawing some of the Resident Alien or Terminator. I was kind of wanting to be found by the Prometheus aliens, there's all the stuff. But I really like the idea of giving him, like, I think we both are in alignment. The family shouldn't be as idealistic as possible.
Yeah.
If you ever read the reboot of Supreme Power, Power Supreme, that's one thing with their version of Superman, Hyperion. The government quickly pounces and they try and make things look like they're idyllic, but they aren't. Again, I think like they're giving him, like, no family is perfect. And that's what Marvel, I think, wins, that they show a lot of the families have their drama. I mean, as great as Peter Parker is, there's trauma there. Batman, I mean, you can write a whole book, and I think there have been on Bat's trauma. Give Superman some of that to make him more relatable. Absolutely.
Well, you know what you could even do? You know who could find him? The Green Lantern Corps. The Green Lantern Corps could actually take him all the way to Earth.
Yes.
That'd actually be a really cool way. Or you could even bring in the Legion of Superheroes somehow as well.
How about if you did a complete Elseworlds tale, and while he's found by the Kents and they're close to losing the farm, and then they show, like, after young Clark, the baby Clark, has been with the Kents to say for like 24 to 48 hours, you see this car pull up, a person that the comic pages just be, a woman in heels and a man in like nice loafers walking up, talking to the Kents. They give you no text, but you just see the Kents, and then you see on the table just this huge attaché case of money, and then they go yes, and it winds up being that the people that take him are the Luthors.
Oh wow! You know what? You could also bring in the baby daddy, the one who lost the baby. Maybe that's why he's not with the mom.
Yeah,
his name could be John Johns.
yo, yo. I just noticed with his background, I disappeared a couple seconds, which is great. But
You-
feel like Max Headroom.
right, you just disappeared into the Matrix.
Yes.
Oh man,
Okay.
man, we actually had a little bit of fun on that pitch there.
That was great.
Brian, did we just reboot Superman to
I
be
think we
awesome?
just fixed Superman. I do. So again, DC, and we know you're listening.
Or watching?
Yes, or watching. Just give us, like, again, it doesn't have to be canon. Just give
Yeah.
us just Superman Twisted Steel.
Ooh,
Yes.
man, I really like that. You can almost be like,
Yes.
like the saw thing where the thing's going around the nail or
Yeah.
whatever. I
Yeah.
like him.
Give
Fucking
Superman
love
a mullet or this long hair, and it'll write itself from there. Okay.
Yeah, all he needs is a 70 mustache too.
Yeah, oh God, yeah, yeah. Okay, he's gonna be in a poor family from Kansas. Give Superman meth just one time, like little Clark, and just have this just fly through like all the buildings.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I think it's perfect. Okay, yeah, we just went from a really fun exercise to, hey, they brought in drug use and miscarriages. Yeah. All right, it's all fun and games till someone loses a baby. All right. Okay. All right. Oh God, we're gonna get
Oh wow.
we're gonna get us I'm sorry, we're gonna get us kicked off. Okay. All right, let's get to my pitch before. By the way, next week, Bradley, I wish you the best of luck with this and your new co-host.
There is no new co-host.
Yeah.
No. We're stuck. We'll change the name.
There we go. Yes. All right. Yeah. But this is why I say the comments and opinions of Brian and Stephen Dennis are those his and his alone. All right. Okay. All right. Cool. I like that. So, are you ready for my pitch, sir?
I've been thinking about it all week. I know you said
Yeah.
that it was pretty much you got some ideas from my pitch from
Yes,
the last
yours
episode.
inspired this. Absolutely. I got to give
Yes.
you all credit as you were giving your pitch. One of my things that popped in my head was this one. So, number one, so for those of you that are getting new to our podcast, Brad and I are creating what we call the variant verse. So, we've got a lot of different ideas that we're pulling together. One that we'll talk a little bit more about, I'm sure, in future podcasts. So, this would take place in our variant verse. All right. So, Bradley, I'm going to tell you the story and check the name, sir, of one Kyle Oliver.
Nice.
And AKA, he is Hart, H-A-R-T, because a hart means a stag or idea of an alpha male. All right. So Kyle Oliver, Agent Oliver, works for a Black Ops group called the Foundation. And he is a member of a team called the Dropouts. And the reason that they're called the Dropouts, that wherever you put them in, they can infiltrate, dissolve, and drop out of any type of country and destabilize it in less than 48 hours.
That's cool.
Right?
I like that.
Okay.
Mhm.
So with him being a member of the Dropouts, each of the Dropouts is genetically enhanced. They're not super soldiers, enhanced soldiers. So they're not Captain America. They're not Soldier Boy. But what they are, they're meant to be more efficient soldiers. So things of their bodies produce less lactic acid. Their lungs are more efficient. Their eyes are more efficient. So basically, while they're completely killable and can be harmed, they are meant to survive the things that most people would not survive. Not superpowered, but enhanced. So, as they're given the experimental medication, and we'll call them some nanobots, to create this, these are the first generation. The Dropouts are the first generation of enhanced soldiers. So, where Kyle Oliver becomes interested, by the way, I'll share the name of this comic and the story here in a moment. But Kyle Oliver is one of the first members of the Dropouts. He's the very first member of the Dropouts to be killed in action. He sacrificed himself for the team and actually throws himself in front of some smart bullets and is actually killed. Now, because they're called the Dropouts, most of the members of the Dropouts actually work as their cover in education. So he's in a small school system, let's say in Des Moines, Iowa, or maybe make it Ankeny, Iowa. So he's injured, and because he's in the middle of the country, before a team can be deployed to a hospital, he's taken and pronounced dead. Well, one of the things that we do when someone's pronounced dead is that you check to see if they can be organ donors. Now we bring in even more the other side of the fantastic. So Kyle's organs, Kyle Oliver, again, his organs are now transplanted into other people. One of the things that his enhancement does is that while any part of his body, any of his organs are still functioning, he's not allowed to pass into the afterlife. So he now can talk to the people who hold his organs. So this is where we're going to name the show Pieces of Me.
Oh, I dig that.
Now, what this matters is this. So, Kyle feels that the only one that knew it had to be an inside job because his cover is just that deep. So, right before he is killed, he's assigned a mission to find what they feel is going to be the ultimate doomsday weapon, which is going to be called the Global Reset System, the GRS. So as he's first deployed to find the GRS, the ultimate weapon against the United States, he's murdered. So he is for sure that this had to be an inside job. So while his spirit allows him to talk to anyone that has part of his body, those organs, he's going to deploy them to help him solve his own murder and to find the GRS, but also because the nanobots are still connected to him some way, they're not even sure where. Not only can he talk to these individuals that hold his organs, he can inhabit their bodies. So they get the ability of his fighter knowledge, his combat skills, and what they eventually find out as this long goes out, a lot of those enhancements that he had, because they now have the organs they now have. So they realize that they're capable of doing incredible things even without Kyle inhabiting them. So it's going to be a combination of you can basically make some pieces of the afterlife and when does death occur, what comes next. You can bring in some supernatural things of Kyle trying to be pulled into whatever comes next. But you also have almost like a 24. You've got this really great espionage thing. You've got them side of the fantastic. All the people who receive his organs are going to be everyday men and women. Um, and then what I like about it from my premise is as the series goes on, there's lots of parts of you that survive that can be transplanted. Your eyes, your lungs, your liver, your heart, your kidneys. So Kyle's gonna have those three people at the beginning. So the people to get his eyes, his heart, and his lungs. But because other things have also been transplanted, when needed, we'll find that he will have those other cast members come in and again to really help him try to solve not only his own murder mystery, but again to track down the GRS and really the corruption that could be in not only the foundation but the other dropouts.
Oh man, I like that. The foundation, because like a foundation is something that's in like the beginning of something.
Absolutely,
Um
absolutely.
um it would be really cool, like say like the eyes or whatever organ went into one of the cast members.
Yep.
They like that
With
part
his
would be what they see.
hands,
Right,
yeah.
right. So like if it's the eyes, like you can only see. Oh man, dude, very
I
cool.
really like that. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That I will have to maybe work on this together for some script. I was like, okay, because I had that. So what I had thought, and these are else I didn't bring in the original pitch, was that for the ones that receive his eyes, they have enhanced vision, so they have like
Yeah,
perfect night vision. They see their again. I like that they're making them enhanced, so not superpower, but again
right.
able to do almost like they have some superish powers. I
Ooh.
thought maybe the heart, because it pumps faster, that made a person gets like not I called it danger sense, so not spider
Mhm.
sense. I don't want to get sued, but
Right.
like they have they have more situational awareness, like their fight or flight, so they can tell when someone is when they're in danger, and maybe because of that, their reflexes are enhanced. And I thought, what can I
Mhm.
do for lungs? What can I do for kidney? And so again, I played a doctor on this podcast, but I
Mhm.
definitely like the idea because then you could almost we pre-benched Mask a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
but like maybe depending on the situation, these folks are really who would be. They have more like a team. Or if you remember, did you ever watch Sense8 on Netflix?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
a
so
great
almost
show.
that, like, okay, well, what we need are these things they can work together
Mhm.
and really talk. So yeah, I really like how we can make pieces of me, really be that again, that espionage spy kind of super team. But again, they don't have, none of them have superpowers. They're enhanced, and again, in the same universe that you have, everything else has happened since Shattered Earth Day.
Right, and it'd be really cool, like if they're really close together,
Hmm.
like everything else starts to enhance, right?
Yes, right,
So if they're
right,
further
right.
away, like nothing really,
Yeah,
happens too much, but like if they're, and maybe that's how they meet each other. Then maybe they each have a tie to each other,
sure. I
or
thought
like
about that
the
too. Yeah, they got that
foundation,
web. Yep, yep.
right?
Yeah. So I was thinking with the original three, maybe they were the ones that received a transplant like in town. But
Uh-huh.
as they travel more or the word gets out, like the connection to maybe someone's on the other side of the country, they start to wake up and feel those again. That's how you can start off with like a tight cast of Kyle and then three people that things have been transplanted into, but then you can build more and more over time. So yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Oh man, I really dig that. We'll definitely be talking about that for a
And
while.
then I just had to give him the name of Kyle Oliver. I thought you would like that.
Oliver Queen, baby, Oliver Queen. All right,
And the Kyle, of
and
course,
Kyle
being
Rayner,
there
and
you
Kyle
go.
Rayner.
I
Yep,
got
yep.
you. I got you. Yep.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you for that. So let's go ahead and put a pin in this episode.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Brian. Where can we get a hold of you?
All right. So my social media presence lives and dies on Facebook. So as always, find me at Brian Stephen Dennis. Give me a like, give me a follow, give me a friend request, and I always try and keep things fun and interesting. And it's hop on. We can chop it up about my favorite topic. That is tacos.
All right, you can tweet at me at Fandemic3, message me on Facebook at the Fandemic, also active on TikTok at the Fandemic1. Hear my reviews and so much more. Also, check out the Fandemic War Report as well. If you want to support the show, there are several ways to do so. You go to Patreon at pvotn/fandemic. Buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/the Fandemic. PayPal, Venmo, or just share the show with somebody that you think needs a little bit more awesome in their life.
Absolutely.
Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and give me a review. 5-star preferably. And Brian, how do we end every show?
As always, remember the Goonies never say die, never quit. Sorry, never give up. Oh my goodness. The funds of live television or spot streaming. So again, Goonies never say die, no retreat, no surrender. Brad, take us home.
All right, we're all playing the same game in life, just on a different level. Thanks for catching up. You're welcome for leveling up your awesomeness. Live free or die empty. Have a great day.